Welcome back to Let's Talk Race and Mile. I'm your host, Harrison Paul, and today we're going to talk about a security guard had been suspended after a video showed an asylum seeker at City West Transit Hub being punched multiple times. I'm going to put up on the screen for you guys to see it. Let's see. This is a domestic situation, by the way, so everyone back home in Ireland will be should be very familiar with this situation. And let's just unpack this. Let's give it a look. As you can see here, dude is getting excessive force, giving excessive force to this asylum seeker. And my thing is, obviously we are arriving at a place where he's being motivated. He's being motivated by the narrative that's going around. He understands that something like this makes him a hero amongst the country. He may just be doing his job because he has to do his job. But at the end of the day, he's being motivated. That's why, and I was on the bus today, and, I was so happy because I was on a bus and I heard an Arabic person behind me, and he was speaking Arabic, and you could tell. And the minute I heard him, he was a young man as well. This understanding came in my heart where I understood and was able to understand why it's so dangerous, these narratives that are flying around. Because instantly I began to feel the narrative that go around of like, oh geez, you go around, you don't even hear your own language, you're just hearing foreigners and whatever. And I sat there and I began to feel for this young man, as I could almost, when you have like secondhand embarrassment, but it wasn't embarrassment, just the closest thing I can find to describe it. But you almost know what type of hate that person will receive. And what type of things are being said about the fact that, you have an Arabic person. And we know there's a lot of Islamophobia going around at this time and everything that's going around. But the main thing that really hurt me about that situation was understanding that we should be living in a world where, diversity is not a negative thing. We should be living in a world where you can learn from different cultures, you can learn from different people. And it's funny, like I repeat this all the time, it's also unfortunate that these people don't understand that the reason that their countries and Europe has become this epicenter for a lot of people is because they have done so much crimes against humanity all these years. And what is not underlined is the fact that this is life going full circle. So the people are just so ignorant to believe that, people come to you just because you're gods or you're you have this heavenly land. It's life moves in a circle. Life moves in a circle. There's psychological reasons to why Europe became a place for people to go. And there's also actual, tangible reasons as to why your countries became developed enough. It wasn't because you are geniuses or your brains work better than other people. There's historical facts and there's current day facts. There are current day facts of what you guys do that empowers you. Listen, we can say this now. I'll move on quickly. But even if we think about countries, it's never just country versus country. You have to understand that there are world organizations. And these world organizations such as EU, such as IMF, such as World Bank, these they cooperate more with you than they cooperate with these, other countries within Africa or anything like that. They cooperate with you. For example, we understand that Gaddafi, was killed, but we also understand that Saddam Hussein was killed. Why? Because they believe to have weapons of mass destruction. These are crimes against humanity, for example, that America do, but they should be called to account for those crimes. They're never called to account. Why? Who are the people that are supposed to call them to account? We can talk about Israel. Who are the people who are supposed to hold Israel to account? It's the very people who are on the same gang. So we think of it as like, if your country is not as superior. No. It's just fortunate enough that when the white agenda was being built, they built a whole new system that could support their criminality. They built a whole new system that could support the criminality. And you're thinking that it's because of, we're smarter, we're better, whatever. No, there are rules that cover you when you break rules. There are systems that cover you, when you break rules. This is the benefit that the white power structure has. But let us move on today, because today I really want to talk about some a lot of things that are special to my heart regarding Ireland, and a lot of things I want people to understand here today. So when we look at this, it's a very unfortunate situation. But another thing I wanted to talk about here today, I want to play another tape from today. Why? This tape is an Irish lady. I just think it's just brilliant, because this type of lady is literally a lady I would have gone to school with, or rather would have been a teacher of mine. And I like to use this all the time because before you guys believed us, you guys always said, if racism does exist in Ireland, it's only those scumbags. It's no one significant. It's nobody. Just learn to ignore the Egypts. We have to ignore the Egypts. There's nobody who can affect your life. Nobody who has a say in your life. Just don't be a weak or victim mentality. We're all very nice. Anybody who has a good head in their shoulders, anybody who's like a normal citizen, let's say, they have a good head in their shoulders. That's the majority of Ireland. So it's a vast minority. It's a minority, right? This is what we were forced to believe. So then black people begin to have this cognitive dissonance. And what I believe I've developed as I've grown and matured is to be able to call a spade. Because I won't allow someone to manipulate me that I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. And when you are being forced to not see what you are seeing so much, you then begin to lower your standards. And your standards become lower because you know that, listen, this is a normal way of behaving between me and this person. They're not racist, right? This is what you're forced to believe. So this lady is very special, who I'm about to play right now, because this is a lady who would have been a teacher. This is a lady who works in a significant role within society. This is not a nothing lady. And we understood that these people thought like this. We understood that they thought like this. But it's so crazy, because imagine being this age and being so ignorant to what I'm about to share with you in this video. So just keep watching.
Migrants are not always respectful of the locals. So that means that we can't any longer go walk around the street. We need protection, and we have to be more conscious. We can't let children out, and we have endless accounts of migrants doing things that is not in the interest of the locals.
So wonderful. As we know, this woman is a very significant figure. She's not, you can tell, a woman who's more or less posh lady, has herself put together, but look how warped the perception is. Look how dangerous the perception is. Look how evil the perception is. What this woman is insinuating is that anyone who's a migrant, right? And of course, migrant, you can't, because she's obviously saying, we're afraid to leave our house, we're afraid to go outside. What does this mean? This does not mean a European or like a Polish European or whatever, because funny thing happened yesterday. I was in A&E, and I was going through a situation with my tooth, been going through it, and there was a fight that took place, that broke out, right? And it was between one guy he looked a bit like of a West Indies black guy, but he was a little bit drunk. And good on the guy. He starts to say to this, he starts obviously fighting because I think he wanted to get treated and he wasn't getting the treatment he wanted or something like that. He began to kind of kick a fuss up, and he was a black guy, but not really black, kind of West Indies a little bit. And so he's being taken away by the guards or whatever, and they're kind of just pulling him away. And he's a bit drunk, a bit of a drunk guy, not being too violent, but just a little bit reckless, of course. And he's being dragged away, and then eventually, he looks at the guys and says, this country stole from my people and all that kind of stuff. And, me and my lady were like, right on, what I'm trying to say, giving people a history lesson right there. And then there was another dude who was looking at him directly. And as the guy is looking at him, he looks at the guy, because the guy's kind of looking at him like, you fool, not a word came out of his mouth. And then the West Indies kind of guy, African, of course, originally, because he's brown, black guy, hey, you looking at me like, look at the way you're looking at me. Do you know what you stole from me? Do you know what the British did to me? Blah, 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 blah. He kind of started to give this whole spiel. And in that moment, then, I thought it was a British man, you know, because I'm in the UK. I thought it was a British man. I kept quiet, you know, and I just, me and my lady, we laughed at it, and it was a moment. You know, later then I'm sitting in the A&E with that same dude who's actually, you know, he was with his girlfriend also. And I hear him talk, just nothing, this situation's long gone, whatever, because I was there for hours. And I'm sitting there and I see the dude with his girl, and him and his girl kind of, I overhear them. And it's Eastern European accents. So this is, you know, so explanatory. Like it shows you that until your Eastern European opens his mouth, that's when, you know what I mean, that's when the threat comes. So the threat is really begins at the sight of somebody, you know, because that brother assumed that it was one of them, right? So the kinship or kinship is there, right? So when someone is talking about we're dangerous, we can't leave our house, they're obviously talking about off of sight, instant thought. I'm walking down the street, I'm seeing someone, she most likely will think that Polish person is Irish, right? She's not going to think anything much of it. Hear me out. You can sometimes tell, but hear me out now. It is obviously the darker skinned migrants that cause this fear. You see why these narratives that were created about us. So now she's thinking we are inherently more dangerous. I spoke to a brother recently. He told me this year, 2023 was the highest year for crime. Highest year for migrants who came in. Forgive me for that. And yet it was not the highest year migrants committed crime. The highest committed crime on women especially was committed, and murders actually, was committed by Irish men who had a connection to that woman. So this narrative, and you know, I do this show for Black people. We already know that we are not the violent ones. We already know that majority of us who come here, we come here to work. We come here to, build our lives. We do not come here to start problems. So to create a narrative that says Black people are inherently more dangerous is shockingly ignorant. You know, it is actually scary how ignorant they can be. Now, the point that I want to get to today, and I want to add this point for you guys to understand this, and I'll go then I'll wrap everything into one piece, and you'll see where I'm going with this. There was another guy here, and he was on a train, you know, and he addresses this young Black boy, and I want you to also see how he addresses him, how he speaks to him. Of course, when you see in the comments, a lot of people are saying, how was this interaction racist? I wanted to get into how this interaction is racist, and I'm just going to try and make it as quick as possible. How do you expect a Black person to feel secure in himself when you can feel this kind of aura off of somebody? I'm going to play the tape for you guys to see it. Check it out.
All right, Kevin, you can talk in front of the camera.
How are you?
I'm good.
Grand. Where are you from yourself?
From Ireland.
I fucking doubt that very much.
Yeah, me too.
I'm from Lagos.
Good man yourself.
What's wrong with Lagos?
Do you want to go and sit down now, or like what's the story?
You won't be putting me down anyway. Nice bloke. What's your name?
I want to pause it there. So, nice bloke, what's your name? Because he understood. He understood a racist was in his mind. He tried to backtrack slightly there. If I go back a few seconds, he had actually a little bit of a smirk. But he understood. That's what he said. Nice bloke. Easy to read here. Easy to read. You're reading this as a Black person.
What's your name?
The white man behind him, I just caught on the camera, is also smiling, by the way. If you look at the white man behind him, he is actually also smiling at the situation. So now you're watching it be your humanity is now games and jokes to two elders, people, senior citizens who you're supposed to respect. If they don't respect you, and how then does that make you feel about yourself? Let's continue.
I'm annoying everybody, am I?
Yep.
Jesus, let's see how many people I've annoyed now today. Am I annoying anybody in this carriage?
What's to be done?
Must be annoying you then. Chase is unreal, isn't it? Heavy. The snare, Luke Kelly. What's your name? Wouldn't shake an American man's hand, would you? Right, protest then. I'm doing the protest.
So what's that? Wouldn't shake an American man's hand, right? Basically, he's saying he's trying to do reverse psychology because he was just racist to him. So now, oh, you won't shake my hand because so you're racist. Then he says, right, protest then. You know? So you're racist against me, I should go out and protest. Mocking. He's mocking us. Here we go.
Get over where I am.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. And there you have it. Listen, guys. What I'm trying to say is that, by the way, this guy was a teacher. I'm going to put up on the screen for you guys to see. This guy was actually a teacher. So that was why I felt like this was relevant, because I spoke about teachers and whatever and whatever. And we can talk about teachers. We can talk about people in workplaces, someone who's your manager, someone who's whatever. Significant people that affect you growing up in Ireland and then your life in Ireland. We've been trying to say this for a very long time, but we were told, relax, it's only the Aegis, it's only whatever. And I'm going to put on the screen now how we now currently have this crazy movement that is literally escalating by the weeks, protests against migrants. And it is so disheartening for me to watch and see my brothers and sisters crawl into their hole during this time. There is no hope in hell that this type of a movement could be happening against African Americans. And there is no real African American movement that is fighting back at this violent movement. There is no way. There is absolutely no way they would roll over and say, forget them. I don't focus on them. They will fight their right to be human within that country. They will fight their right to be respected within that country. I have only seen movements of people within the parliament defending this and calling out the far right, and I'll tell you why today that happened. The unfortunate thing, my brothers and sisters, we think that Irish government are doing this because they love us, because they're kind-hearted, because they want to support migrants. They are covering their backs because there is a lot of funding coming from these migrants. They are covering their backs because there is a lot of funding from these migrants. Without these migrants, with the way inflation has been moving, I am telling you right now, they're going to crumble and they're going to fall and they're going to be in worse rubbish. They're going to be in worse situations when you guys are complaining about the fact that inflation is so high and the economy is in a bad state. I want to read out something for you today so you guys can understand something. Check this out. The Asylum Migration Integration Fund, AMIF, has seen a marked increase in the amount of funding available. For 2021 to 2027, the fund amounts to 9.9 billion euros compared to 3.137 billion euros over the previous 2014 to 2020 period. What does this tell us, guys? They are being given an incentive for bringing migrants in. This is off bat, I'm telling you right now. This is the EU. This is off bat. The EU exploit and cause wars within Africa. They cause destabilization within Africa. This is what neocolonialism is. A brother asked me today, Harrison, what is your goal? What is your goal? You know, and not in a way where it was a negative thing and a positive thing, like I'm with you, but where are we going? You know, because it's going to be hard to change everybody's mind. Like, where are we going? And I said, brother, I'm trying to change the culture and the mind of the African. once his mind is transformed, once he understands his worth and has a newfound understanding of his worth and what he brings to Ireland, he then will not behave like a visitor. He then will not behave like a visitor. And when he doesn't have the aura of a visitor, he has more confidence. He can then thrive more in self-determination. He can thrive in self-discovery. What they want us to do is they want us to be people that when we are quote unquote allowed in the country, we shrivel and we shrink under their permission and their sheer kindness to allow us in the country. So now we have a war, tug of war between, is it about unvetted migrants? Is it about migrants in general? Do you want vetted people? Is it you don't want anybody at all? What is the actual problem? That's what I love about these marches. I can tell you that everybody who marched, and all these marches, images I showed you, if you want to tell me that every single person in there is saying, I love black people, I love foreign people, I just don't want unvetted people, you're a liar. You are living in a fairy tale. It is a lie. When my brother said to me, I've been here long enough to understand that propaganda. I grew up here. My parents came here in the 90s, in 96. My parents came here, in 97. They were not treated nicely even when it was booming, even when they were working, even when they were putting in shifts. My mother came and has done the dirty work in this country, has cleaned up for the elderly. Healthcare systems will crash if not for Africans. I was in the hospital the other day, like I told you, and I haven't been there in a while. And I'm seeing black people everywhere. I'm seeing Africans everywhere. I got so much to say, guys. I'm trying to organize myself. This movement is so racist. I'm going to tell you why I'm radical and I'm unapologetic about being radical. Because whenever a black person has to fight against racism, we find ourselves having this trigger saying, not all. What is that in you, brothers and sisters? That you feel this fear to say, not all, not all. Are they marching out there and saying that not all? And the ones who know the people who are feeling that way, are they fighting for those people saying, make sure you don't say it's all the migrants? It is only us who live with that burden, that fear to make sure, please, no, I don't misunderstand me. Not one of them has the same level of fear that their movement will be misinterpreted. So you tell me who's wearing the pants. If you expect me to continue on in a relationship, I'm not going nowhere, but I will not continue sitting quiet in a relationship where they can state something how they want, whatever they want, without fear of offending, and we have to expect to know, I don't have a racist bone in my body, it's about this, it's about that. They couldn't give a rat's. Even had a video I played on my last day, I might play it again. A woman said, another woman, quite like this woman, I put in one of my other videos, I actually put the video on the screen, and that way it make it easier. I don't care what you think of me. This is how I feel. I don't care. And what I want the African to understand is history. Because when he understands his history and he understands neocolonialism and he understands these facts of what I just said, he now understands he should not be here and apologetic. There's a guy called Kieran McDonald or Kieran McDonald, something like that. I wish that brother saw me. I wish that brother locked eyes with me. I wish I could bump into that brother. I would teach that man a lesson and stupefy him on his own show. We can talk about the incentives that Ireland gets from the EU, and you say, leave the EU, you will crumble without the EU. Even the UK are having conversations about getting back in the EU. Why? Because the EU is doing dirty work with Africa. The EU is still continuing its relationship of colonialism with Africa. The EU assured that those independence contracts, those so-called independence contracts, were not going to be genuine independence contracts. So we are still African, I'm talking to you African, trying to undo colonialism. The lie that you have believed, please understand me, is that it is your corruption that you're still here. It is corruption of the European Union and its relationship with Europe. So you have an African leader who's trying to undo that. And we also understand that they do not allow anybody to come in power who does not cooperate with them. I was talking to my cousin from Africa, and she was telling me that Africans are not even producing their own food. Can you imagine that? Africa, where we could live organically, people are still having to go out and get jobs. People can't even work off the land. I want you to understand that the way systems were set in place, brothers and sisters, was so strategic. I was shocked to hear this. I thought everyone was living off the land and rural. She goes, no. Colonialism, really, neo-colonialism is a thing. We're still having to go to shops. And I seen a wonderful interview that said, if you want to know the imperialists, who's in charge, look at your plate. Thomas Sankara said this in his book. They know to control the very things. How is that land like Africa, as rich as it is, and you have been so silly to just read into all those commercials, please give £3 a month. Please give. How were Africans feeding themselves before colonization? How did Africans live off the land and their cattle before colonization? You are made believe that we've always been stupid. We dropped from the sky stupid. We were grazing our own cattle. We were doing our own harvest. We were living that life. Why do Africans today? Why don't we do the same thing we were doing before? Because they infiltrated. They infiltrated that whole agricultural system. Africa cannot even trade with itself. It trades more with Europe than it trades with itself. I don't think you guys understand the desperateness that the European Union has to operate in to make sure they destabilize Africa. The wars, to make sure they control how Africa. Can you believe Africa has to buy rice? Buy rice? How the heck is Africa buying rice? Africa, those things are African. They come and they tell you, no, the way you're doing cattle is not proper. We have to make sure it's given a proper injection and all this kind of stuff. No. And then they're purposely destroying the soil. And I was also talking to my cousin. She said to me, the way they're mining the soil is they're destroying it. I can't even begin to tell you how many minerals come out of Africa. Every day, chrome. I'm going to put the list on the screen. I was talking to her. I said, can you give me the list of things that are coming out? Diamonds, gold. We don't even, dollar is not even backed by gold. Yet our money cannot be backed by gold. You don't understand. And if you try to change this, suddenly the world organizations gang up on you and then cause you to be sanctioned for your behavior. Only recently did Africa come out of the sanctions that was set back when Robert Mugabe was there. I am forced to believe that because they now understand that they have to shake a little bit with Africa. And it comes to the fact that the public is no longer as ignorant as it once was when the narrative was just being controlled by the European and Western powers. Now narratives can be shared on TikTok, they can be shared on Instagram, and we can empower ourselves. And when we begin to have these movements, the likes of the European Union understand that they cannot continue crimes as easily and swiftly as they used to. Young people are now getting into power, and when they get into power and they get, skills of lawyer skills, different types of skills, that is why these people fight for those old men who they have control over to stay in power. You think that your election was rigged just because it was rigged. Your election was rigged by do or die, by any means necessary, because the European Union cannot afford to. That is neocolonialism. Now let me talk about the fact that Africans actually are hard-working people. So everybody knows that when Africans come to Europe or when Africans come to any country or foreigners of any sort, right? That's why Biden is opening the borders. When an African person comes, he just wants to hit the ground running and start working. He's not even trying to, he wants to hit the ground running and begin working. So this is basic economics. They understand that when the economy is in a bad way, they can bring cheap labor. Because when an Irish person will be bougie about what price he wants for his time, an African person will come, and I'm going to use the care sector for a minute, the health sector. He will do an overnight. For example, my mother was one of them. She would stay overnight almost on weekly basis. Whereas an Irish person says, I want to go home. But African person has more on the line. They will do a stay-in, something that was called a stay-in with an elderly person. And my mom spoke to someone recently on a TikTok live. I had her jump in on the live and say, I looked after your elderly. I looked after your elderly, staying up at night when her own children did not want to look after. I worked hours, late hours, up at night. If I hear her groan or moan, I have to get up in the middle of the night out of my sleep and go, and I looked after your elderly with absolute care. And I worked hard because when I first came, I wasn't able. She had a degree in finance. More than a degree, she wasn't able to hit the ground running in finance straight away, and she worked hard in care and then worked her way up. And guess what? Faced racism in all those sectors. Now you're telling her that no one is coming to her defense? And sorry to say, the voices in Ireland who are so-called open-minded are far too quiet for me. Far, far too quiet for me. Far too quiet for me. This is why I am unapologetic. I want to play a very important tape for you before I sign off on this episode. This is something within the UK, not as relevant, but of course, it is not as specifically relevant, but it's totally relevant to the concept of my immigration and what they bring. I already pointed out what they bring on the deals Africa have. I don't want to say deals. God forgive me for saying deals. The crooked criminality that's happening. And then you ask yourself the question, because I just want to touch on this very quickly. Why does the EU want each country within within the EU to take in people from abroad, these Africans? Why? Because they already have leverage. They want more leverage over Africa's minerals. Another reason to create leverage over Africa's minerals. So watch this here. This is a very eye-opening tape.
Hi, I'm from Ghana and I came to UK 8 months ago.
Hi, my name is Dina. I'm from India. I'm being here now 8 months.
Hi, my name is Aisha. I come from Ghana. I've been in the UK since last year, December, so almost a year.
The care sector is a labour-intensive industry, labour that comes from all over the world. 80% of the staff at Hartwood House are international.
Can this industry work or cope without staff from abroad?
No, absolutely not. No, I'm categoric about that. Absolutely cannot. It's not about money for local staff. They just...
I just love how she literally couldn't wait. Let me rewind that. I absolutely couldn't. I loved how she literally couldn't wait to get the answer out of her mouth. Watch this.
Industry work or cope without staff from abroad?
No, absolutely not. No, I'm categoric about that. Absolutely cannot. It's not about money for local staff. They just don't want to do this sort of work.
There are people who would just say, look, if you paid local staff more, then they'd happily work here.
No, they wouldn't.
Why not?
Because it's not about the money. You can't do this sort of work if you're not the right sort of person. So paying people more actually isn't the answer. If you pay people more, you attract the wrong sort of people. It's people that think, well, I need to earn a little bit more money. I can earn, if I work at Asda, I can earn this, but if I work in care, I can earn a little bit more. But they're not minded for this sort of work.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And it just reminds me when I was saying I was in the hospital and seeing black doctors everywhere. We deserve respect. We deserve respect. And we need Africans. We need to quit the submissive nature. We need to quit the submissive nature. You need to understand your history. You need to understand neocolonialism. And you need to remember the very least what your parents have put into this country. Working late nights. Most of you African people understand that your parents were never home working. And now at a time like now, you're going to allow yourself to be undermined and try to see, they don't mean it like that. Or they need to be people who are afraid of offending you. That is not a true friendship. It's not a true union. It's not a true relationship. If it is only you mindful, not all white people, not all white people. And now this whole messy migrant movement is happening. Thousands across the country, old and young, upper class, middle class, lower class, all sorts of classes. And you are quiet. Every black movement is quiet. I will not be one of those sorry Negroes. I cannot. You call it not being a victim. You call it getting on with your business. That is the very least you can do for your children. Create a country, create an atmosphere that thinks properly. Create an atmosphere that is less ignorant. If you are doing nothing to invest in an atmosphere, your children, that's one of the things I loved about those tapes as I was watching those tapes. Can you imagine those people are bringing their children to a racist march, and then our kids go to school with those kids? You can say now as an adult, just don't care about that. I don't listen to that. What about your 5-year-old kid? Or what about your 12-year-old kid who's still trying to understand identity? Who's still trying to understand that, listen, I've just got to have confidence in myself and being who I am. And he's trying to belong, and he's in school, and those kids who've been indoctrinated to think like that, who on marches like that, are going to school with your child. Stop thinking about yourself. Stop being a submissive African and understand your history, understand the current, and understand at least, the very least, your rights of what you've earned in this current day. These people, a lot of them, are so ignorant. What in the world makes you think that your government has fallen out of love with you and fallen in love with Africans? Why? Because of our brown skin? There is an incentive from the European Union, let alone they're the ones who will do the dirty work and clean the elderly and clean up and wipe the bums when you would much rather do a different job. The African comes in here and carries your systems, carries your healthcare systems. And if you think African, being brave, is turning the other cheek, is looking away and putting your head down, I feel sorry for your children, because you are teaching them an inferior mentality. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'm on a mission for you.